Hi team, welcome to the Kindness, Curiosity and Comfortable Shoes podcast. My name is James McFetrich and this is an ongoing toolkit for all healthcare staff. Whether you are a porter or a paediatrician, a domestic or a driver, clinical or non-clinical, just starting or just finishing your work in healthcare, this podcast aims to give you some useful thoughts about working for this amazing business to get you through your day. Thank you so much for listening. I hope these thoughts are useful and the podcast is fulfilling its purpose as a toolkit for all healthcare workers. So before we start, if you enjoy listening to this podcast, please tell other people, tell your co-workers, share what you like about it. Go on, put it in your work WhatsApp group. Go on, do it now, then it's done. And feel free to follow at JMac Education on Facebook, X, Instagram, LinkedIn, Threads, whatever your social media preference is, and you'll get more information related to the podcasts and other JMac Education updates. Thank you. Today I thought I'd talk about targets. So for those of you in the UK and working in the NHS, you'll be very aware of the targets that we have, and for myself specifically in emergency medicine, the 4-hour target. So the target that from a patient arriving in the departments to leaving the department, that should be no longer than 4 hours for 95% of patients. So targets are very close to my heart. They've been a big part of my clinical career. Talking about it today, often look at topics by finding a definition of a topic. And brilliantly, the first definition of targets that I found was a person, object or place selected as the aim of an attack, or an object shot at. And it can sometimes feel like that, can't it? Perhaps a better definition for what we want to talk about is a target is to direct an action at a particular group or specific desired outcomes that support achievement of the objectives. And that's really what the NHS and other healthcare targets are about. They're performance measures. They are a means to achieve progress against a priority. And whatever you feel about the definition of targets in your line of work, you will definitely be accountable to them at various times. And they should be there, I guess, to maybe encourage, certainly guide, aim towards best practice. But we know they are often used as a stick to beat people with, either at a local level or certainly at a national level with the media. And I guess one of the problems I feel with targets is that at some point somebody has to stick a finger in the air and decide exactly where a target should lie. Clearly that's going to have input from experts in whichever field is relevant. But as I say, for the target in the emergency department, how do we know that 95% of patients should be seen within 4 hours in the emergency department? Why is it not 90%? Or why not 5 hours? So they can seem quite arbitrary, but clearly well-meaning numbers. But as soon as we attach that target to a performance measure, then there is political or organisational meaning to it. League tables can be produced, performance measures can be displayed on a graph and discussed in monthly meetings. And once we get to that level, then there is that political pressure, broadly speaking, that if a target isn't being met, well, is it the right target, or is the system not reaching the target? If we change the target so we then hit it, the system will then appear to be functioning better. There's also the aspect of gaming when it comes to specific numbers. This came very clear to me in my time in emergency medicine, when patients would, on paper at the very least, leave the department at 3 hours 59 minutes. But it doesn't take much thinking about it to think, well, who's to say when that clock should stop? Is it the time they finish their treatment, the time they leave the room, the time they leave the department or the hospital, or when their notes are finished up by the clinician? It's all fairly arbitrary for something that is timed literally to the minute. Add up all those figures and average them across a population, maybe it does mean something. Maybe some of those errors will be cancelled out. But it just makes me feel slightly uneasy that such a significant measure, we don't actually know when the clock should start or stop. And what you don't want that to turn into, and that has clearly happened at many points with various different targets, that for us in emergency medicine, would you stop treating one patient just to ensure another patient would leave before their 4 hours were up and therefore tick a box that they had completed their stay before 4 hours, but at the risk of the patient that you're in the middle of treating had their treatment paused to manage someone else? That's clearly not right. But some people interpreting the targets in the wrong way would feel that would be the way to manage it. So are they just a necessary evil? Maybe without them, our standards would just slide. We would just think, well, it's okay, I'll do that referral tomorrow. But each delay means that's a delay to a patient. And if you have, for example, a 2-week wait for a cancer target, if you delay your referral, that adds another day onto that patient waiting. And all of us have a part to play, whether you are a domestic cleaning a room ready for the next patient, if you work in administration ensuring appointments are sent out, whether you're a clinician seeing the patient and filling in the right form for their treatment. We all have a role in making sure that whatever targets are relevant to our care are being kept. I do think we need good practice to aim for, but we look at that from a population perspective, and it's sometimes difficult to apply those targets to the individual patient in front of you. And from a working point of view, I think it's really easy to lose satisfaction in work when you're keeping to someone else's targets that may not make sense to you or indeed for the patient that you've got sat in front of you. But we do have control over what we do to help the system. The more control we have over our work, the more satisfied we will be in our work. And for targets, our control is going to be ensuring that we're doing the best we can in our role to help with the bigger target, rather than blaming the rest of the system. And that's the problem that we see all too often. We forget that we are a small cog in a machine, but a vital cog, and that we can look at elsewhere in the system and see the errors and problems there that contribute to the targets, rather than initially focusing on what we can do to make sure that we are doing the best we can to hit those targets, whatever your feelings are about them. So maybe the next time you think about targets in your place of work, and if your seniors are asking you to do something differently in response to meeting a target, just pause and think, how well do you actually understand those targets? Why are they there? And how can you help to meet them? Thank you for listening today. There are links in the show notes for information that I've referred to in the show. And if you enjoyed the show and want to help the podcast grow and expand, then please support me and the show and head to buymeacoffee.com/jmaceducation. That's buymeacoffee, all one word, .com/jmaceducation, and support the podcast there. Or if you're listening on the podcast website at kccpodcast.buzzsprout.com, click on the heart on the top right of the page, or click on the support the show link in the show notes. It's also really helpful for me if you rate, review, like, follow, share, subscribe, whatever's appropriate on whichever platform you're listening on. Again, it really does help grow the show. Thank you. So please take care of yourselves out there. You are doing a great job. And remember, be kind, be curious, and don't forget your comfortable shoes. Thank you to Shakina Studio for the music, downloaded through Audio Jungle. Thank you to Beth for the artwork and the photo, produced through Canva. And thank you to Buzzsprout for hosting the podcast. The Kindness, Curiosity and Comfortable Shoes podcast is a JMac Education production.